Mino Line Media presents the Business First Podcast.
Hi, all, and welcome to a new episode of Business First with Sonia Aline. I am your host. And today I'm excited to talk to this young lady because these are some thoughts that I was just recently having. And then I was introduced to her brand. So please welcome to the studio, Dr. Natalie Michon Alexander. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you so much, Sonia. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. This interview is so timely. My daughter, who lives in Atlanta, visited this weekend. And I was telling her, I was just like, I think I have to give you my passwords. Like, I have to just give you a bunch of things just in case anything happens. And you created this company and this platform called Heir Tight, which is Heir Tight, to do just that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was it that actually happened in your experience that helped you to create this platform? And then we'll go into what it actually does.
So, great question, right? And it's so funny because I'm like 2 miles away from where the incident happened. And 1 week we had 2 funerals for my uncle. And Sonia, I would love to say that we had 2 funerals for him because we loved him that much, or there was 2 sets of events that we needed to celebrate him for, but that's not what happened. My uncle, we found him deceased in his apartment, unfortunately. And of course, we had to figure out what we were going to do. We were in the process for looking for his life documents in his apartment because he had never been married. He didn't have children. So we couldn't find his life documents. So we had to just kind of do what we felt we could afford to do. And that was rent a casket, have a celebration service, and then cremate him. That was our decision. Well, we found out moments before he was due to be cremated that, in fact, he had a will, a life insurance policy, and a burial policy. And we were like, wait a minute. Burial means in the ground, correct? Right? And so they were like, yes. So we had to get his body back from the crematory. And it's like, wait, I don't know how much you have left, but whatever you have left, just give it back. So luckily they had not cremated my uncle at that time. So we got his body back. We had to purchase a casket and then do another celebration of life. And now he rests in peace in a grave, right? But because we just did not have difficult conversations and we're a close family, that we just, you assume that there's a tomorrow. Everybody assumes tomorrow comes. So that's really the story on what led me on the journey to help families. So there's over 128 million families that are in the same predicament that I was in.
And so I think I'm in shock just from the story. I experienced something. I'm not close to the person, but a friend just recently, the same way, when you find that somebody has passed in their apartment and that's how you discover them. That's quite shocking. I mean, the death is shocking. And then to discover it in the way that you did is as absolutely shocking. What was it that led you? Was it just going through his things in the apartment, which is usually the process? Is that how you found?
It just so happened to be a friend of his that had access to his documents. That was also a legal advisor of his, actually saw in the obituaries that my uncle had passed. So he calls my mother. But however, my mother was my uncle's beneficiary, next of kin. But that gentleman had an old number. We used to live in Texas. He had an old number for my mother, right? And so it just so happened that we own a family restaurant at that time here in Atlanta. And so, which my uncle told everybody about. My uncle was very instrumental from helping us kick off this restaurant. My uncle was there every Thursday night, but then the week he passed, he wasn't there that Thursday. But it just so happened when that gentleman saw in the obituaries that my uncle passed away was when he called the restaurant to find my mother to let her know that he had access to these documents. So that's how we found it.
If he wasn't skimming the obituaries, and I don't know if it was in the paper, but now you actually you almost have to look for obituaries now. Like before, it would be common reading in a newspaper. But if he didn't come across it, then you would have cremated your uncle, even though he had made all of these provisions for
Yes.
his own burial.
Yep, absolutely.
So when did your uncle pass?
This was in 2007.
And so when did some other events occur, or did you see that it was a recurring factor that inspired you to create Heir Tight?
So, you know that when one thing happens to you, and this is for anybody, then you'll start recognizing the problem in other people's life, right? And so it's just the same way. If you buy a blue Tesla, then all of a sudden you're gonna see blue Teslas everywhere, right? So then it kind of seemed like, well, you know what? I'm hearing about this a lot. So I honestly, Sonia, I came up with the business concept and the business idea in 2008. And I was like, there's got to be a way I can help people. And even though I've always been an entrepreneur, I always understood as an entrepreneur, if there's a problem, if you can come up with a solution for that problem, then ultimately you help people, you help yourself, right? And so in 2008, it was really born in my gut of the business that I wanted to do. I could not afford to do it, Sonia, until 2020. So that's how long it stayed within me. And I was like, I've got to get this done. I want to get this business done.
So explain now for the audience, like what this platform actually does, how it supports you, and how it's set up. Because you also say that it's not like a typical photo or document sharing platform. So if you could explain that as well.
Yes. So if you could imagine your whole family office in one secure, and I want to say secure platform, right? One place where all of your family can put their most sensitive documents so that anybody can find it at any time. So Heir Tight is a secure document storage that's designed to hold, manage, and communicate all of your life, legal, and business documents. So in the event of emergency or death, or just needing to have access to certain things, you have access to them. So for example, Sonia, if you're married and you want to make sure that your spouse has access to your will, your life insurance policy, then you can give access. But one of the features that I love is that you can set it to unlock after death or at the time of death, right? So I joke around with my kids all the time and they're like, Mom, we're not that grimy. But I joke around and I'm like, you know what? Y'all will have access to this life insurance policy and this will, but y'all will not see it till I'm gone because y'all might get excited when y'all see how much is on this policy. So we're going to go ahead and just cut it out now. Surprise at the end of the day, right? So that's one of the features. But the other feature that I like you mentioned, like passwords, is there's a password manager in there. And so those, you just put in the passwords that you want, like power. There's certain things that you just don't want your family to assume that customer service will understand your issue and allow you to keep moving forward, right? So password manager is in the system and you're not giving access directly to your account. You're creating sub-users. So in those sub-users, they have access to the certain documents that you've tagged them to, for them to have access to. They will receive them for free in their Heir Tight account. So now they can hold it. So it's a depository, right? Or repository for their documents in their own sub-user account. Now, you have a family member that wants to do the same thing, then all they would have to do is activate their own Heir Tight account. They would still have access to the documents that were previously shared with them, but now they can duplicate the same thing. Send the documents to their family members that they want to make sure that has access to certain documents at certain times.
So I'm going to give you a scenario. So I have 2 children. I also have a younger adult brother. And so if I wanted to set up an account and, I was thinking, and this is why this was so timely, because, our phones are always locked. So even photos, like I even thought about like, if they were putting the program together, like what photos would they like pull up or what photos would they have access to since we don't have albums anymore. Right. And, my son lives here, but my daughter lives in another state. My brother is in another state. And so people have access to, they have their own pictures or they have their own things that are dear to them. So what you're saying is I could open an account while I am very much alive and I can put pictures, videos. I can put videos in there as well. Any of my health documents, the will, any insurance policies, information to my bank accounts.
Yeah.
And any deeds, any things for property, all of that can go into this one area. And then I would tag all of the people who should have access to that.
Yes, exactly.
And I can, this is part of the feature, is because I may not want to share certain things right now, I know that they would have access to everything after I'm gone.
Correct.
All the things that they would need.
Yes.
And are you also saying that they in turn can tag other people who may be part of the family? Because there could be an unusual situation, right, where we're all off, we all perish together, God forbid. But this is still here.
Correct.
And it could have access. We could make it accessible to other people as well.
Yes, as long as the permissions have been set and granted to the users, then yes.
That is incredible. What has been some of the feedback? So you launched in 2020. What has been some of the feedback from people who are actively using it?
So I'm going to be transparent. The feedback when we started is you don't want to be reminded of death, right? And so people are like, oh my gosh, I need this. And there's people listening to us right now that are saying, oh my gosh, I need this, but they don't take action, right? And so, because at the end of the day, that's why I'll tell you, only 1/3 of the American population has a will. I remember I didn't do my will until I was 7 months in on the company. I'm like, Natalie, girl, you need to get your own ish right together. But then I was like, if I do my will, am I stamping my death? But then I had to
stuttering as I was talking about it, because you're absolutely right. Like, even using me as an example made me hesitant.
Yeah.
So I get it.
But then when you flip it, Sonia, and you say, you know what? It's not about death. It's about life. That's really where we have to understand is shame on me if something should happen to me and I'm out here every single day building a business, or I'm just out here, if a person's out there going to work every day and they own a home, but they haven't just filled out certain little things just to make sure that their children are okay. You know what I mean? Shame on us if we don't do that. So that's why I say that I don't want people to ever feel like if I do a will, that means that, no, let me go ahead and do this will so the government does not take 40% of all of this that I done put my effort, my time, energy, money into. So boom, it only takes a few minutes to do a will. And for those people that haven't done a will, you can actually do your will, your living will, and your power of attorney in your Heir Tight account in the comfort of your own home. Fill out the questions. You know what I mean? And then you can go back and amend it every year. We'll send out reminders. We can't see the documents that you store. We can see how much space that you take up. So that's kind of our security, right? On the security measures. However, if you do have a will and you've done it, it will kind of ask you date and things so that the next year we can kind of remind you, do you need to update your information? Because you might be married this year and you might not be married next year, but update your stuff, get your beneficiaries together. But it's just that's the biggest thing that we've dealt with, Sonia, is that the holdback is this is an educational curve. I've seen people say, I don't know about putting my stuff in there. And I'm like, okay, talk to me. Tell me why. They be like, because, my family don't need to know where my stuff is. Well, tell me why. So then I understood, and I'm going to keep it real with you. I understood that hiding your documents and keeping your documents a secret stems back from slavery. And it really wasn't for the family not to have access. It was the slaves were trying to hide it from their slave masters, right? So that the family could have it. But we took the wrong mindset. We took the mindset of, like we'd hear our big mama be like, y'all don't nobody need to know. Or they may have it under the bed or they may have it hidden somewhere, but they did not tell anybody. So that's kind of like where, just in all transparency, where we see pullback. But once we understand as a people in the African American community alone, we lose $100 million of valuables every year due to lack of communication.
100 million
is what we give away.
Wow. Because we just didn't either feel like we needed to, or we were scared to put that information out. And so that puts it into huge context, the importance. I'm glad you talked about just understanding the mindset of why people can be resistant. And I was going to ask you if you had prompts, and apparently you do. And so you will remind people to update. Well, number one, the fact that you can actually put your information, because in my head I was thinking, all right, so now that you have it, you could be encouraged to go get a will or but it's right there. You don't even have to say, well, I've got to go someplace else to do it. I can do it right here. And that's I would imagine, at least this is how it feels for me, having been reluctant to do a lot of these things that we're talking about, having one place that encourages me to do it feels really good.
We'll be right back after this message.
It does. It's like I feel accomplished that I've put my things in places for my children to have. I feel accomplished that even, God forbid, if I go before my mother, she understands, she has a level of understanding of, okay, where can I pick up where my daughter left off? Between mortgage, between utilities, between cars, between insurance, like where can I pick up where she left off?
Tell us a little bit about your background. You said you were a serial entrepreneur. You mentioned that your uncle worked in or had a restaurant. What businesses have you been in? And tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey.
So my father opened and started our first restaurant in 1989 in St. Louis, Missouri. And I actually went to medical school in Texas. I did not finish. I remember my junior year, and I was like, Dad, I'm thinking I'm taking the easy route out, Sonia. I was like, you know what? If I go work with my dad, then I don't have to, girl, I joined my dad in the restaurant business, Sonia. I think medical school would have been easier than the restaurant business.
Before you continue on, what was it about medicine that was attractive to you?
The human body excites me. But when I was 16 years old, I was in a really terrible car accident where I was partially paralyzed on my left side. I broke, crushed the left side of my face. My shoulder was crushed. My left foot was crushed. And I could not walk. I did not have feeling for 9 months. And so I was in a long-term rehab center. And there was something about that rehab center that, number one, I healed in, of course, but then number two, customer service just was not, I felt like a number in there. And I was just like, man, I would love to help people on this journey, but I don't want them to feel like a number. So that spun in my mind to say, okay, I fell in love with the rehab, the physical therapy. I was like, I like this because I said in medicine, I didn't want to deal with blood and gore and all of that kind of stuff, but I love the human body. And so while I was in school, I was like, I want to do a long-term rehab center. I was always an entrepreneur all through high school. It must be passed down from generations because my mother's father was an inventor. You know what I mean? Like that kind of passed down in generations within me. And so I just thought, working with my dad in the restaurant business would be cool. But in my heart, like I still love the human body. Still. So that's really kind of what started my journey. So then while I was in school, I put together my first business plan, and I said, maybe it's medicine I don't want to do per se, but maybe do a long-term rehab center that also brought together horses. But I wanted to do equine therapy. So I remember when I could get on a horse for the first time, one of the therapists let me ride a horse, and it moved my body differently than my body moved in a physical therapy facility, right? So your body moves different on a horse. So different things was moving, right? So I was like, well, maybe I could just do, this type of therapy. And that's really what I wanted to do. But then I jumped ship and then decided just to work with my dad. So my dad said, well, you know what, Nat, if you decide to join in the restaurant business with me, he was like, let's look into Atlanta. We had family here in Atlanta. Unfortunately, one of my cousins passed away early before we moved here, which kind of brought the family here. And that was kind of like eye awakening, like, okay, Atlanta. Like I think everybody visits Atlanta and then wants to move to Atlanta. But for anybody listening, Atlanta is closed. We can't take nobody. We can't take nobody else. But so my dad. So in 2001, we moved here. In 2002, we opened our second location of our restaurant.
What type of restaurant was it?
It was called Michon's. It's actually my middle name, and it was smoked meats and southern sides. So it was really good. It was good.
Oh, it sounds good.
Yes, live jazz, full bar. Like it was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of work. I'll tell you, that restaurant business is a lot of work, but that's kind of like my journey in entrepreneurship, and then kind of what the roads that led me here.
And so, are you still managing the restaurant while you do this, or
no?
Have you totally shifted?
2017, we retired our restaurant brand. 2011, my father was involved in a golfing accident. He's kind of swung wrong and caused his lungs to collapse. He had surgery for that, and then he ended up in 2018, passed away from the complications over the years from that. So we knew, the doctors told us that he had 1 to 2 years left to live. And I'll be honest, like I joined the restaurant business because of him, but that wasn't my calling from God. And so, so some years I did. Some years I struggled in the restaurant business mentally because I wasn't where God wanted me to be, but I was where I wanted to be. So I was pulled with things that I wanted to do entrepreneurial wise. I was pulled, right? But I wanted to see the business that my dad had the vision for. I wanted to see it all the way through.
And so where are you today?
So I do Heir Tight full time. I have a couple other businesses. I learned years ago not to have all of your eggs in one basket. So I own an event center. I have vehicles on Turo, so I helping my kids start their businesses. So I just, I love business. I love entrepreneurship. So if I see a need, I'm just like, hey, let's try it. But I have multiple income streams, and that's just because I just learned. And I tell anybody that listens, even if you have a full-time job, have your side hustle. Never depend on one thing, because if anything should happen, then you want to make sure that, you at least have something else coming in. And so that's kind of just what I do.
And so what are your bigger goals for Heir Tight? So you're almost 5 years in?
So we're a full 3 years live, development and beta testing. But Heir Tight I'm excited to say that our goal is for Heir Tight to be your everyday household communication tool. So what you have right now is kind of like our day one. We've had a couple updates that we've done in the system as we've grown and as we understood what our users need. And we have some AI stuff coming out. We have your legacy bestie AI edition coming out first quarter of next year. And she's going to talk to you, and she's going to let you know if there's any missing pieces in your legacy plan or things to communicate. and she's going to help you, do I need to update something for you, or do I need to email somebody for you? So, we have some things like that, but our goal is for Heir Tight to be your household name for family office and family communication.
That is incredible. Let people know how we can find you and how we can subscribe. It's a subscription program, I imagine.
It is.
Yes.
It's cheaper than Netflix, everybody. It's
and way more important.
And way more important. But listen, Sonia, they can go to getheirtight.com. That's GETHEIRTIGHT.com to go ahead and just start your 14-day free trial. Get in there, touch, see, feel it, try it out, right? And then from there, then they can go ahead and just start uploading documents. The system is going to kind of prompt you day by day in your first 14 days of little things that you can do each day. Like, we don't want it to be overwhelming. Right. It's just like, today, let's work on these 2 things. You know what I mean? Little bite-sized pieces of action. But you can find us there. Start your 14-day free trial. Also, we have on social media, all of our social media.
Just go past the 14-day trial.
Right. But we want you to just get started. just do it.
Get started. Yes.
And then all of our social medias is at Get Heir Tight. That's how you find us everywhere.
Well, I have interviewed a lot of people over the years, and this idea is just simply brilliant. And, as I mentioned, I was having concerns about, like, not only just pulling things together, but like putting it in a place. Like, I grew up where you put everything in a safe, and then your mother knew where the safe was and where the key was, right? So that you could get access to these things. And we just don't live in, everything is password coded. And so, like I mentioned at the beginning, like I just said to my daughter, like, I've got to give you all of my passcodes just in case. And so, and then to be introduced to you and this, like, congratulations and thank you. Thank you so much for providing a platform like this.
Yes. And let me say this really quick, Sonia. We have a book that just came out, and let me see, I have one right here, and it's called I Know You Didn't Just Die on Me. Now, let me tell you what's funny about this book. It's a fun but serious estate planning book that you can have, and it's so simple. Actions and steps that you can do now, by even calling the bank and making sure, how to transfer your property, how you can have it's called a TOD, like, so transfer on death, a POD, payable on death, like different things that you can do that don't cost you anything, that you can just make sure, that your family and your property and different things like that are together. If you have questions about what kind of trust do I need? Do I need a trust? Things like that. So
in this book,
I tell you, this is the catch-all book, but it's so simple. You can read it in less than an hour and a half, but you can make notes. And I tell people all the time, is anything that I do is going to be action with it. So this book is on Amazon, or you can go to nataliemichon.com and get the book, but it's the best gift that you can give your family. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely. Do you think that this is, obviously, your spirit is that you are a serial entrepreneur. This is obviously also an important project for you. Do you think that this is what you're going to build out? Like, you have the digital platform, the book, maybe events or speak. Like, is this where you think you want to really expand your footprint on this project?
Absolutely. So, I was talking to my team, and I want to make sure that who I am aligns with what I love to do. And I love helping people, period. And so, so if I can be coined as, that legacy go-to person, then that's kind of really what I am. So if it's legacy, and it's not just about, that's why I tell people, it's not just about death. It's still about life. So I travel and do keynotes. I travel and do speaking engagements. I did, I was in 4 different cities in just July alone, but I do, and some of the opportunity and in 2 news stations. So some of it is speaking on the book and education, and of course everything leads back to the platform, but it goes back to just like you said, the entrepreneurship and making sure everything aligns. So yeah.
And so you believe that this is what God has called you to do.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that earlier. Okay.
Absolutely. When when you're where you're supposed to be, when the doors just easily open.
I was going to ask you if you could talk a little bit more about that, because I find that people who know somewhere deep, deep down in their soul what their calling is, or when they're not supposed to be in a place, or when they're supposed to leave. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who is struggling with following and identifying and listening to the calling, and struggling with, well, this is safe, or this is what I do now, or this is where I am, all the excuses that we tell ourselves to just stay put?
That's a great question. So I tell people that it's just, if it's something that you wake up to, you go to sleep to, you feel it in your gut, then it's just do it. And don't try to play safe. You can ride by a cemetery. And my dad taught me that. We were riding by a cemetery one day, and he's like, "Nato, that is the most expensive land on earth right there. The most valuable land right there." And I'm looking at the cemetery, and so my mind is like, well, if they run out of space, then that's it. You know what I mean? And he was like, no. So many people have died with books in them. So many people have died with businesses in them, things that they were supposed to put on this earth that God gave them, but God had to shift it to somebody else because of their lack of obedience. Don't go to heaven and God be like, I gave you something, but you just didn't do it. If it's in you, God gave it to you. Don't try to play safe. One thing I don't do, Sonia, is I don't play safe. I'm like this. If I know that God's given it to me, I'm like, God, I'm going to jump out here because you've guided me. But the thing is, you got to listen to God throughout the path of it. You know what I mean? I pray before there's things that I do. I sit in silence before there's some decisions that I need to make so I can hear clearly and move accordingly. But if that's something that God has placed in you, you know. But don't go to your grave with your baby in your belly.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Thank you,
Dr. Alexander.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation. I loved it. I think this was probably one of my favorite interviews.
Oh, you have such a great product and such a great story about the product and why it exists. I expect that you'll be doing a lot of interviews and a lot of speeches and a lot of teaching, because Lord knows we all need it. Yeah. Yes. So we will be following your progress. I know I'm going to sign up. I encourage everybody listening to sign up, and would love to have you back as you grow and develop more extensions. And I'm going to order the book. You said it's on Amazon.
Yes.
And it's also on your website. If you give us your website once more.
NatalieMichon.com. MICHON.com.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I look forward to coming back.
And thank you all for listening. We'll be back again next week with another great guest.
The Business First podcast is hosted and produced by Sonia Aline. Executive producer Ken Johnson. Find the Business First podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, TuneIn, or wherever you get your podcast. On social media on IG at business_first_podcast. Follow the Mean Old Line Media Podcast Network on IG at Mean Old Line Media. Get the Mean Old Line Media app in the App Store or Google Play. The Business First Podcast is a Mean Old Line Media production.